Hi guys, it's time for another webinar now. Today we are going to do some questions from our own practice test, from the ANA prep practice test. Yeah, these are those questions which our learners have shared with us that they want us to take them in the video mode. So we've put them all together and we'll discuss them today. Now, most of these questions are from the arithmetic hard practice test. Then I think there is one from the arithmetic medium and there is one from algebra hard. Yeah. In case you want to take these tests very seriously, in case you want to take them in a timed manner and actually judge for yourself, how you're doing, then you can leave the webinar right now. No worries. You can check out the recording later on after you've taken the test. In case you've already taken the practice test or you would much rather take those questions for practice, then you can join us in the webinar. We'll discuss, how to handle these questions. And what was the thought behind them, and when you see those questions, then what should you think about, etc. Yeah, what should jump out at you, and then how to think about it essentially. Yeah. All right, so let's get started. I'll share my screen with you. All right, so then this is our first question. I hope you can see it. In case there are any problems, let me know. So Chris got a bonus of $60,000 this month and decided to use a part of it to buy a car. Fine. He invested 40% of the rest of the amount. So he used some part of this 60K to buy a car and he invested the rest of the amount. Fine. But he invested 40% of the rest of the amount at 8% simple annual interest. So let's say this rest of the amount is P. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to assume this to be P because anyway, there are some complicated calculations coming on, right? I see that I'm asked 8% simple interest and then there are some other numbers as well. Of course, the calculation is going to be on this particular amount that he's investing. So then it is best to take this as variable to reduce more complexity. Fine. So 40% of the rest of the amount, which means 2/5 of P, at 8% annual interest, which means at 8%, yeah, and the remaining 60% at 6% annual interest compounded, all right, compounded annually. So plus the rest of the 3/5 of P is at 6%. Yeah, now I'm just thinking about the first year. I mean, using the formula of compound interest, I try to avoid wherever possible because I just think that it's the calculations are usually easier, though of course perhaps they're just the same, or I feel that the calculations are usually a little easier to handle in case I'm just looking at them as if you remember in our content we've discussed those questions where there's a difference between compound interest in the first and the second year, right? And I just have to look at that part, which is interest on interest. And when I look at that, my question becomes a whole lot easier than actually calculating the compound interest in both the years, right? So that is the reason why I try to just take it one part at a time. Yeah. So then I'm looking at just the first year. And I say that, this would be the interest earned in the first year. Of course, this is 16p by 500 plus this is going to be 18p by 500, which is equal to 34p by 500, right? So this is the interest of first year, and for second year as well, I'm going to have the same 34p by 500. Plus, I'm going to also have a 6% on this 18p by 500, right? So I'll have a 6%. This is my interest on the interest that was generated in first year, just the part that was compounded, right? This was simply simple interest only. This part is just SI. So all right, then I say this is 6% of 18p by 500. Now, when I add the entire amount, this 34p by 500 of the second year, this 34p by 500 of the first year, I've calculated it here, right? And this 6% of the interest that, the compound interest that was generated in the first year, this total comes out to be This thing at the end of 2 years, he earned a total interest of 1727. So the total comes out to be 1727. Yeah. How much might be used to buy the car? So essentially, I need the value of P, and I'm going to subtract that P out of the 60K to get the value of the car. Fine. Now, it's a little bit of a tricky calculation, right? So let me think about what I'm going to do over here. 68P upon 500 if I'm adding these two terms, plus I have 18 into 6 and upon 100 into 500. Let me just do the calculation. And guys, it's good to know the tables till 19. And even if you don't know the tables till 19, it's essential to know, let's say 18 into 5. For example, I know 18 into 5 is 90. So 18 into 6 calculation is super simple, right? But the best thing is to know all the tables, yeah? All right, so then this is going to be then 108p upon 500. Yeah, 6% of this. Now, and this is equal to 1727. There are another two zeros over here because I have 100 here. And I'll call this then, I'll say this is then 6800 upon, I'll put another two zeros over here, 6800p, and upon 50,000 and 108p upon 50,000. Now, so relatively simpler, I'll say this is 6908p upon 50,000. Now, since it's GMAT that we are talking about, in case you have a number like this, you can be rest assured that they are going to get cancelled out. Yeah. So I see that I have a 17 something here and a 6908 over here. I know that my 17 times 4 is 68, right? So it anyway, over here it is 171727 times 4 is 6908, because I know 17 times 4 is 68, and then 27, when I take it 4 times, is going to give me 108. So when I add it together, I get 6908. But even if you have to think about it, that okay, there has to be a relation. The numbers will fit beautifully. Even if they are big numbers, they are going to fit beautifully. Yeah? They will get cancelled out very easily. So of course, then we get that this is 4 over here, this entire thing. So I get P is equal to 50,000 upon 4, which gives me 12,500. So then I can subtract it from 60,000 to get my answer as 47,500, right? Now, look, it is a slightly complicated calculation, yeah? But then the point in GMAT is that you have options available and you should use those smartly. So when I look at this question, before I even get into my calculations, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a look at the options available. And look what I see. I see that the options are really far apart. Yeah. So I'm actually not going to do all this calculation at all. Yeah. What am I going to do? I'll say fine. I mean, 60,000 minus something. Of course, I'm going to take this amount that I invested as P only. Fine. Now, he invested 40% of the amount at 8% simple interest and the remaining 60% at 6% compound annual interest. You know what I'm going to assume? I'm going to assume that perhaps he invested the entire amount at 7%. It's not going to make much of a difference, right? I have an 8% simple interest and I have a 6%, a higher amount at 6%, which is compounded. Anyway, when it is compounded, I get a little bit extra interest. Overall, 7%, if I assume, it's not going to make much of a difference. The options are really, really far apart. Yeah. All right, so then all I'm going to say is fine, then 7% of P for 2 years, this is about 1727, right? Okay, this becomes 50. Now I know 7 upon 50, I'm saying is very close to 1 upon 7, right? Very, very, I'm approximating. It's okay. It doesn't matter. The options are really, really far apart. So I say that, okay, this is 1 upon 7. Then I say P is equal to 1727 into 7. Now again, the tables come into the picture. I know 17 times 7. I'm going to again say, okay, if it's 1700, 17 times 7, I know is 119. Yeah. So then what I'm getting is about 12,000, as in 11,900. These two zeros are also there, right? So I'm getting about 12,000 as the answer. So my P is about 12,000, which means that of the given options possible, the only thing that is possible is E. Right? I can easily approximate it. The options are really far apart. and I know that I can get my answer. Certainly a little bit here and there, there's going to be absolutely no difference. An amount of 12,500 is very, very different from an amount of 25,000, right? The interest will be absolutely very, very different, right? I mean, or, we're looking at like double the interest, isn't it? Yeah. So then, for sure, in case I see that my options are far apart, use approximations. This entire calculation during the action, I mean, it's not hard either. Look, if you followed through, it's not hard either, right? There isn't much, and for that matter, there's only one variable, and we've added the fractions. We've not really done any calculation per se, as long as if we know that the only calculation was, realizing that this, what do I do with this 6908 and 1727, and we know that in GMAT approximation, you might have ended up doing the approximation over here. For example, if you didn't really find out what is 1727 times 4. And guys, try to get a feel for numbers. Try to do it orally as much as possible. Like, for example, if I want to find out whether 4 times of this is actually this, I say find 17/4 is, 6800, and then I'm left with a 27. So I'll say 27 times 4. 27 times 2 is 54, and then times 4 is 108. So of course, then I'm going to add, and I'll actually get 6908, right? I'll not do this at all. This I'll certainly not do in GMAT. Yeah, you don't require. Yeah. All right. Any doubts over here? Any doubts in this question?